facing high housing costs. But with the we all majority of Arkansans in these programs that work for us as hard as we work for our state and families. Hey, policymakers and politicians, it's time to meet Alice. Who is Alice? All of us.
Something is wrong. Oh, it's not. My lover's got humor. She's the cute at a funeral. With everybody's disapproval. Sure worships her sooner. If the heavens ever did speak, she's the last true my peace. Every soul is getting more bleak. Fresh poison each week. We were born sick. Hear them say it. Not your always no absolute. She tells me worship in the bedroom. Only heaven I be sent to is when I'm alone with you. I was born sick, but I love it. Command me to be well. Amen. Amen. Amen.
What you forget? What you forget? What you forget? Cord for your computer.
Take me to church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of your life. I'll see your sins and you can sharpen your knife. Offer me that death, the good God, let me see my life. Take me to church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of your life. I'll see your sins and you can sharpen your knife. Offer me that death, the good God, let me see my life. Yes, bringing us in this morning. Take Me to Church by Hosier, and that is the cover by Vext. I am so excited about this conversation. I can't even stand it. But before we get started, first of all, Taine, say something. Can we hear you?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But okay, all right. I'm gonna figure that out.
Yes, I can hear you. All right,
Okay.
so you are listening to Community Voices right here live at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people, and we are so excited that you have stopped right here for this hour for us to have conversation that centers Blackness, but helps us all struggle toward collective liberation. And I want to make sure, because it's been a long time, I want to make sure that we have a moment for you to hear from your co-host. Where you been? Let's hear from your co-host, the pastor. Tony Orr is in the house this morning.
Hey, it's good to be back. I wasn't on all last month. It was Women's History Month, and it was great just to hear the stories of women with, no man perspective in it. And I think it was a great thing. I want to thank Denise for doing that, because it's something that was surely needed. I just want to say it's good to be back. I want to thank everybody who came out yesterday to the Eclipse party that we had here at KABF 88.3 FM in the parking lot. It was awesome. We had backyard fish fry. We had music. People showed up. My tea showed up and enjoyed herself. But I just want to thank everybody who came, who supported KBF, who bought merchandise, who took away some of those CDs that we had to give away. It was, like I said, it was a great time. Also, just want to remind you that we are in Pledge Drive. And it's your pledges and your donations that help support KBF 88.3 FM. In August, it will be 40 years that we have been on the air, being voice of the people, community radio, and we cannot do it, and we have not been able to do it for all this time without you, our listening audience, and your help and your support. You can give by going to www.kabf.org, and you can hit the donate button. But while you're there, you can also become a member of KABF. Our membership list is growing. Your monthly contribution goes to the sustainability of what we do here at KABF. You can also call 501-372-6119. You can give your pledge to our program director, Charles, or you can call one of your favorite shows at 501-433-0088 and give your pledge or donation directly over the air. We really appreciate that. You can also send a check money over 2101 South Main Street here in Little Rock, 72206. You can also come by the station at that same address. And if you, I always say this, if you come up to the station, we'll make sure that you don't leave empty-handed. We're going to give you something, a CD, an album, a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, a hat, coffee mug. We're going to give you something to show our appreciation for you coming by the station. So remember, go ahead and get your pledge together. We're going to be in pledge drive for the next 2 weeks. So you got, so you got time to get it together and give it to us.
Okay, let me see. I'm having some difficulty. Let's see. Taine, say something now.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, Taine, say something now.
Good morning.
So she's not coming through. Okay, so I'm having some for real difficulty. We really need to hear this conversation. Tony, can you switch with me? I need to run out for just a minute and see if we can. Taine, I need you to hold on just a minute, please. I'll be right back.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
What type of cord you need?
it's the cord like this. It's on my it's gotta be able to plug into.
It got 2 plugs at the end, right?
It's gotta be able to plug into the computer.
Yeah, it just has 2 plugs like.
But it has to be able to plug into the computer, and the computer has that.
Does the computer have a square?
Oh,
okay.
yeah, so you don't have it.
Let me
Okay,
see.
we're having some technical difficulties, and we're trying to figure out how we can figure this out, because we need to be able to hear you, Taine. You are not plugged into the computer. I mean, you're not plugged into the amplifier for the audience to be able to hear you, and so we want to make sure that we can get this together. Tony's trying to figure it out, but I think I'm going to have to run home really quickly and get this done. But I do want to let everybody know. Let me go ahead. I can go ahead with the announcements, and I can go ahead with the EJI tidbit, and I can get us ready for the conversation, and then we can plug right in. So want to say thank you to those of you who not just came out to the eclipse, but those of you who are showing up for Domino's at the park. We are having a great time in the museum, Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts, every Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. We have made such a presence in that space that now the employees are ready to sit down at the table. They're trying to figure out when they're going to be off so they can sit down at the table and play with us. And so one of them been talking junk ever since we started, and he promises that he's going to be at the table on Friday. So we hope to see you all there Fridays from 5 to 7, and we usually stay until 8 o'clock. It closes at 8, but 2 hours is enough. If 2 hours is enough for you, that is fine. We are at 501 East 9th Street at the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts, and we do hope to see you there on this Friday. I can't think of that date right now, but if today's the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, so I think it must be the 12th or something like that. So I do hope that you'll be able to show up so that we can have a great time in the museum, making all kinds of noise on the 3rd floor in the community lounge. I also want to make this announcement from Dana Dossett with the city. The city is having all kinds of programs, always having all kinds of programs, and we want to make sure that you are in the know, that you have an idea of what's going on. So good afternoon. We are excited to announce our newest employment opportunities, along with positions that we are still recruiting for. Each position title contains a hyperlink that will take you directly to the application. Closing dates are included for your convenience. So we want everybody to know that the City of Little Rock is hiring. It is a complete list of current City of Little Rock career opportunities. It is on the website. We have the links for you. So if you need it, we will get it to you. No problem. Just let us know. So the City of Little Rock has plenty of career opportunities for you. Please, 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 if you are interested, let us know and we will get that information to you. You can hit us up right here in the studio where the phone lines are open at 501-433-0088, 501-433-0088, or you could call the office 501-372-6119 and you'll hear the voice, probably most likely, of Charles. Charles was the DJ yesterday. Woo, woo. He was in the house throwing it down with the beats. BB, his wife, was right there with him. We were having a good time yesterday. I'm so glad that you all were here. We had the backyard fish fry food truck was in the house with some buffalo rib fish. I ain't never heard of buffalo rib fish, but T was throwing down on that buffalo rib fish. We had a good time. We saw the eclipse. Everybody went up in shouts and hurrahs and yays when it happened. It was good to be in community. It was absolutely good to be in community. So thank you all for being here for that. I do want to read for us our EJI tidbit for the day to get us, we grounded ourselves in the conversation in the song with Hosier. That's who wrote the song, Take Me to Church. And Take Me to Church is a critique on the modern church. And so Hosier is taking the opportunity to talk about to challenge what happens every Sunday as opposed to what it means to live as a faithful person. And so he says in the song, every week the church is bleak because it's a new poison. Yes, fresh poison every week. And he talks about where we should be worshiping is when we are with each other, especially when we are with that one who we consider to be sacred to us, our lover, our partner, our spouse. That is where we must remember to be sacred, where we must remember to handle each other with holy hands. And so that is the conversation that we are having. Let me see. That is the conversation that we are having. He's having on this song. I just need to run and go get it. So can you come up here? So Tony's gonna come and I'll be right back. Tony, come over here and take over. And then I'll be right back, y'all, so that we can get Taine online and have this conversation that nobody needs to miss. I'll be right back.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day. I hope great morning. I hope your eclipse went well yesterday. Like I said earlier, we had a nice time here at KB at 88.3 FM. We party. People were dancing. People were eating food. It was just an awesome experience. So many people came through that were from out of town just to see what was going on. People were stopping and parking on the street just to walk up and enjoy everything. And yesterday was Charles Ray, our program director. It was his birthday, and so of course, we sang happy birthday to him. But just the fact that the community was involved, and that's what made it so important. We are community radio, and we like to be involved with the community, and we love it when the community is involved with us. We're thinking about making this a monthly event. Just get out on a Saturday and setting up the music, having some food, and just enjoy. One of the greatest things that help facilitate not only love and peace in the neighborhood is when you have community involvement, and that's something that is so important. When people feel like that somebody is concerned about their needs, somebody is concerned about who they are, somebody is concerned about what's going on in their lives. And that's what Community Voices also does. And that's what KBF does very well, is to let people have a voice. It also gives people a platform to talk about the issues that are that they're having in their communities, in their neighborhoods. We are all linked together as humans, and when one human is not being treated fairly, if one person is not concerns aren't met, then all of our concerns are not met. And so that's what's so important. That's an important thing that we have to do, that we have to be more aware of. And anytime we here at KBF can bring the community together, we're going to try our best to do it. It is something that is needed. But right now, there's such a fracture in our society. There's such a discontent in this world. There's such a there's such a discord, and the only way you can get rid of those issues is that we recognize the humanity of everyone, and you bring people together to try to show the commonality. We have more things in common that we have not in common. And so many people have a hard time looking at that. If you can get past the labels of people, if you can get past the stereotypes of people, if you can get past the color of people's skin, and you can realize that, you know what, we all the same. We're all the same. The only thing that changes is maybe our ideas, maybe our cultures, but underneath all of that, we're all the same. And that's the thing that we have to understand. If we can embrace the commonality of all people, then we can move forward to this place of what we constantly say here on the air, justice and equality, that everybody receives the resources and needs that they seek. And when we can get there, we can live into a better, peaceful existence with each other. I know some people will say, "Oh, that's just a pipe dream," but I remember a song by R. Kelly with the Michael Jordan with Space Jam, and the theme song for that movie was "I Believe I Can Fly, I Believe I Can Touch the Sky." And if you can believe it, we can achieve it. But we have to have that idea that we can believe it. We can change. We can make a difference. We can turn this world around to a place that people can be totally free, that people can enjoy their lives, that people can live into the creativity of who they are, that people can live into the space of enjoyment, that people can not worry about whether what meal they're going to eat next. Are they going to have a roof over their head? Are they going to have adequate health care? We can live in a place where all of that is taken care of, that the needs of so many people will be taken care of. And I believe it. I believe that we can get there. I believe that we can achieve that. I believe that we can have that type of society. But so many other people have to believe it, and then you have to work towards it. You have to put in the work to make it happen. And part of that work is examining yourself. What are your prejudices? What are your biases? How do you look at other people? How do you feel about different things? And if you can do that, if you can take away all these isms, if you can take away all these constructs, if you can take away all that, then I believe things can change and things will change. So that's my take on all this, and I think we can, like I said, achieve it, and it can be achieved in our lifetime. Okay, I'm gonna switch up again.
You ain't never heard me say that. I'm glad I live in Petaway. Whew, dang, now say something.
Okay, can you hear me now?
What's going on now? I still can't hear.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear Taine?
I can hear
Because when Katie was here, we could hear Katie. The AV is up.
AV should be down.
AV should be down.
Oh, you don't have
That's when we have music in it.
No, you got this on. You got this hooked up, so you got to have that on.
Say something, Taine.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Put on your headphones. You can't hear.
So weird.
Can you hear?
You can't hear me?
Can you hear?
I'm trying to see if I'm hearing it through. Say something.
Okay. Yeah, I wish I could help figure out the tech things.
Taine, we are having some technical difficulties because you are not live in the studio, but we have had people on before who are not live in the studio, and we can hear them just fine. So we're trying to figure out what is it about you not being able to hear you. Like, do we need to put the mic by the computer? Would that help? Oh my goodness, because we have got to hear this conversation, Taine. We have got to hear it. So we're trying to figure it out. Let me go ahead and give you the tidbit because I picked all of this I picked all of this on purpose because I knew that you were coming today. The EJI tidbit for today, the song Take Me to Church, because I know that you do work in religion and philosophy, you do work with feminism, you do work with critical whiteness. I really want to talk about that critical whiteness, but for right now, Lo says they can hear you. Okay, they say they can hear you, Taine. Okay. Well, if they can hear you, that's all they need. So they will be able to hear you. I don't know why I can't.
So maybe it's just not coming through the headphones.
So our EJI tidbit for today is on April 7th. I chose April 7th again specifically for this conversation. On April 7th, 1927, the Ku Klux Klan kicks off a 10-day series of revival events at a white Presbyterian church in Evergreen, Alabama, and recruits 600 new members. On April 7th in 1927, the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, kicks off a 10-day series of revival events at a white Presbyterian church in Evergreen, Alabama, and recruits 600 new members. And we talk a lot. I talk a lot. I challenge the church a lot, especially the Black church a lot. I do. And you know that. You know that.
Yes, I do.
I do not challenge the history of the Black church. I do not challenge that at all. I am not ashamed of my ancestors and the role that religion played, Christianity played in their lives at all. I am not at all mixed up about that. But where we are today and how complicit we are today, absolutely, I have a problem with that. And so this is a this is a reminder as to why the KKK kicks off a 10-day series of revival events. And in order to be a member of the KKK, you had to be Christian. Like that was a requirement. So like, okay, so you going to church to talk about Jesus, and let's talk about Bloody Sunday, right? We call it Bloody Sunday. What happened in Selma when they were going, they came out of church and then they slaughtered, massacred, they destroyed many of the. You can't hear her.
You just hear her faintly. It would not be a good comment. You barely hear her.
Okay.
I don't know if it's on her end or.
I think it's on. Taine, is your volume all the way up on your computer?
It is, and I can hear really well. But I can switch to a different set of headphones if we want to try that. Do you want me to grab something different? See if a different microphone would work.
If you put on, okay, let's see if that works.
I'll try a different microphone. Let me go grab one.
Okay, she's gonna go grab her microphone and see if that's it, because your girl Lola done said we can't hear. We got to be able to hear her. We can barely hear her. So she's trying to go get a microphone and see if we can. We might just have to reschedule her because you all have got to hear this. But what happened was on March 4th, I know it was March 4th because Dr. Taine Duncan had invited me to showcase some art because I have a body of work that also challenges it's a modern critique. It's a critique on the modern church. Again, not talking about the history of the Black church at all, not talking about my ancestors and their and how they worshiped, not talking about that at all. But talking about now, where we are right now. And so Taine invited me to come to UCA and have a conversation showing, centered around these works of art. And it was for the philosophy and religion department. And so I know it was March 4th because I was on my way there and I was listening to Tony and Neil on, Down with Debt. I was listening to them on Down with Debt, and somebody called in and said something about FAFSA. And said somebody was talking about school. I can't remember exactly what the conversation was, but the caller said, wait a minute. I think that you can go to school for free. I think that that's happening in Arkansas. I don't know. Everybody's kind of like, I don't know. I think so. I don't know. And so while I was at UCA, before I left, I said, Taine, what's going on with FAFSA? And so that's how this conversation started because Taine was like, oh yeah,
Amazing.
this is happening. I was like, you got to come on the show. You got to talk about it. We need to hear what's going on. And so that's how this conversation started. Say something now, Taine. Let's see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me better with this?
I think we can hear you better with that, but I'm not sure. Lola, come back and tell us, can you hear Taine better?
Can you hear me with these?
Say something else.
Okay.
Do you have it? Is it still the volume still turned all the way up?
Yes. Yeah. I have it turned all the way up.
Okay. And so I wanted you to come on and talk about FAFSA, the opportunities that are becoming available. But we also wanted to make sure that people understand that you are not the expert on FAFSA.
That's right.
And we will, because you made that clear that you're not the expert.
I did, yeah.
So you were like, wait, I can connect you with the expert. Like I know someone. I was like, no. I want you in the house. It's important that Dr. Taine Duncan is in the house, and then we can talk about something else. So they want to say something, Taine. They're working on the.
Okay. Yes, I can't believe that it just aligned like that when you came to give the presentation at UCA, that, you heard that on the way up. This is something that we've been working on. And I really love this idea that you have going on in the background, that this access to education, these questions about education, this is connected to some of these other bigger critiques of institutions, and maybe not religious institutions exclusively, but institutions themselves. Is it coming through?
It's coming through, but it's coming through low. I don't know if it's on your end. I don't know. Yeah. Could it be the wherever you are? Could it? I don't know.
Say something now, Taine.
Okay. I tested my microphone before I came on in my office. I'm just using my regular office setup and my microphone in here. So I'm not sure. Sometimes, because I depend on the Wi-Fi and connectivity of the institution, sometimes when there's bad weather, something happens. But what's really weird is I'm getting really good audio. Like y'all are coming through really clearly. I can hear everything there. So
Yeah,
I don't know why. Yeah,
so
I
here's
don't
the
know why
thing.
it's
So
not
we
coming
can
through.
absolutely hear you on Facebook. Everybody who's watching you on Facebook can absolutely hear you. That's not the
Okay.
problem. But they cannot hear you on the radio. And since this is the radio station, I think we're gonna have to just reschedule you. I'm
Oh man.
so upset about it because we really need to hear this information. So as soon as we can get you back on,
Okay.
Taine, please, we need to do that. But we're gonna have
Yeah.
to keep going because we need the radio to be able
Absolutely.
to hear us. And we can't make it happen. So I apologize for that.
No, I'm
Please
sorry.
know how much I appreciate you taking this time with us. And then we'll be back to talk about this later. Okay.
Okay, and I will mess around with things on my end to make sure that I'm not contributing to this too. We'll get it to work out.
Okay. I appreciate you doing that. Thanks. We'll
Yeah.
see you soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Okay, so Taine is gone. Okay, so we're on the radio. Taine is gone. We were going to talk about FAFSA. Tony, do you remember the conversation that you were having that day? It was you and Neil. Y'all were talking about something. The caller called in and said, "Wait a minute, there shouldn't be an excuse or something like that because in Arkansas they're doing this thing where they're paying for you to go to school." Do you remember that conversation?
Yes. I know we were talking about how other states have made sure that if you meet a certain criteria, income, and you qualify that, your tuition will be paid. And someone said that, it's here in Arkansas. I didn't do the research, I'll be honest with you, to find out if that was true or not. But I'm thinking that would be something that me and Neil both would have heard about if it was something that's, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying that we haven't heard about it. I know the only thing I know about where the state will pay for your tuition, if you're 60 or older and you want to go to school, want to go to college, they'll pay for that. But I don't know if that's something that is happening for students who are coming out of high school.
Well, so that's one of the things that Taine was at Dr. Taine. I can't say Dr. Duncan, so we can be professional in the space if that's what you all feel like. But I call her Taine. She calls me Denise. But that's one of the things that Taine said, that it hasn't started yet.
Oh, okay.
It's in the works. It's supposed to start this fall. But part of the conversation was about how the process, the red tape of it happening is some kind of backlog, some kind of delay. And so it isn't ready to roll out, even though it's supposed to roll out later this year. It isn't ready because of all the things that have been going on. And so she was going to talk about, that's what she was going to talk about. She was going to tell us what the process is, where we are in the process, what the hangups are. And she was going to talk about the discrepancies, right? So how it affects different populations of people differently based on who you are, particularly Black folks, because we're going to center Black folks in the conversation, particularly Black folks. And so that's the conversation that we were going to start with, and we really need to have that conversation. So I'm going to work to get her back on. I don't think she can come in. I don't know. We'll figure it out because she's having, she works. She's a professor at the University of Central Arkansas, and she is chair of the Philosophy and Religion Department. And she does work in feminism. She does work in critical whiteness studies. She's just amazing. And so I cannot wait for her to get back on. So we'll talk about FAFSA. So we want you to know we heard you. Sometimes I think we believe that everybody's listening to all the shows all the time. I'm not sure that's true. And so Down with Dead, I was listening to, and then I want to bring it on Community Voices. Sometimes we bring it on the workplace, but we're trying to have these conversations in as many spaces as possible so that we can get as many people informed about what is possible for you as it relates to furthering your education, if that's what you desire. Because there are some people who have a critique on the public school system, on formal education. So we want to have all of those conversations in this space anytime that we can. Go ahead.
And I think when you start talking about the process and the discrepancies and all these other things, it's going to be fascinating to see how this works out, because right now the Arkansas General Assembly, the Arkansas legislators have started their fiscal session budget, where they're talking about the budget. One of the proposals that's out there by our governor is that higher education will be cut by $180 million. So for those of you who may not know the history of higher education, it used to be that states supported most of your higher education, your college. It was state supported. Then there was a shift once the federal government got involved to these student loans, these grants and everything. So states start spending less money on their on the state supported schools. And so now whenever these states want to start talking about budget cuts, the two places they cut first is education and social services. That's where they start at. You're always going to start at those two. So if you're looking about how you're going to do this, this free, if it's going to be where tuition is going to be paid, so now it's going to be a limited amount of money that's going to be available. And yes, they're going to make the process so stringent. Remember when they came out with the lottery, the scholarship lottery? When it first hit, it was like, hey, anybody that wants to, they could apply for this scholarship lottery. After a couple of years, what they did, they started changing it. They started saying, okay, that after your freshman year, you got to have this many hours. After your sophomore year, you got to have this many hours. And if you don't have these hours, then you can't apply for the scholarship. Then it came, well, you know what? At first, it was where you just want to go. Now it's like you got to have a certain grade point average to get this scholarship. And so they keep adding little nuances to it that affect so many different people. And it makes it more difficult for people who really want to go to school, who really want to further their education. It makes it more difficult for them.
Yeah, and so when we talk about this, I want to see if I can connect some dots here. When we talk about the EJI tidbit, where the KKK uses the church to recruit its members, and then its members go on this rampage to terrorize the Black community. Domestic terrorism at its best, in the highest form. The epitome of domestic terrorism is what we saw, and that it uses this church that many of us as Black folks attend on a regular basis. We go, not only do we attend, but we tithe, we teach, we preach, we eulogize, we do all of these things in the name of the church. And, one could argue, is it the very same church? So, well, no, Black people have a different church white people do it, but then you said we serve the same God. So it becomes problematic that we would then enlist. We're going to say, yes, I want to be a part of this very system that is used more often than not, to discriminate against me and still do it in the name of Jesus. And then use the law, use the power through the legislative process to make it legal for me to do this work. And so if we're going to if we grounded the conversation in that EJI tidbit, really for what Taine and I were going to talk about a little later. That's why I chose the song Take Me to Church, like all of this was going to come together. But if we're going to take the time to critique not just the church, but these systems and how we invest in these systems, then I want to bring back up the passage that I read from Without Sanctuary on Thursday. I got more than one call on Thursday to say that I need to say it on Community Voices. So I want to read this passage from Without Sanctuary. It is a photography. It is a visual depiction of lynching on American soil, a visual depiction. And I can't get to that part. I said this on Thursday. I can't get to that part because I keep reading this same first chapter over and over again. I haven't even finished the first chapter because I just keep reading it over and over again to absorb what it is saying and to get it into my body so that I can figure out how I'm going to respond in a plethora of ways. But I'm back on page 11. I'm going to read, I'm on page 13. Yeah, pages 13 and 14. I'm going to start here. The violence meted out to Blacks after emancipation and during Reconstruction included mob executions designed to underscore the limits of Black freedom, anticipated to a considerable degree the wave of murder and terrorism that would sweep across the South 2 decades later and become one of its unmistakable trademarks. Okay, so basically what I just read is that the violence comes after emancipation, after the slaves, the people who were enslaved are set free, during Reconstruction, when here we are on the come up, we are becoming, we're going to be part of this legislative process. We're going to be engaged in the civics of our country. We're on the come up, and then we get this violence because it is its goal is to limit Black freedom. So it goes on to say what was strikingly new and different in the late 19th and early 20th century was the sadism and the exhibitionism that characterized white violence. The ordinary modes of execution and punishment no longer satisfied the emotional appetite of the crowd. To kill the victim was not enough. The execution became public theater, a participatory ritual of torture and death, a voyeuristic spectacle prolonged as long as possible, once for 7 hours for the benefit of the crowd. Newspapers on a number of occasions announced in advance the time and place of a lynching. Special excursion trains transported spectators to the scene. Employers sometimes released their workers to attend. Parents sent notes to school asking teachers to excuse their children for the event. And entire families attended. The children hoisted on their parents' shoulders to miss none of the action and accompanying festivities. Returning from one such occasion, a 9-year-old white youth remained unsatisfied. And this is what he said, I quote, "I have seen a man hanged. Now I wish to see one burned." And so when we talk about, this is what I said on Thursday, I'm gonna say it again. So when we talk about this notion right here about parents being able to send notes to the school to tell the teachers what they can and cannot do regarding their children, which activities their children should be able to participate in, what information they want their children to glean on that day, what programs they want to be, what programming they want to happen in their child's mind. The parent has a right to send this note to the teacher, instructing the teacher how their children should be educated in this space. And I said the same method I see with the LEARNS Act. When the LEARNS Act now, because they talk about critical race theory, and it's not critical race theory at all. What it is anti-Blackness. It's a campaign, it's a force against Blackness. And so when they say, well, now if you want your child to participate in a program, in an activity that has to do with Blackness, with race relations, with diversity, equity, inclusion, now you have to send a note. So it's the same method of parents sending notes to the teachers, instructing them on how their children should be educated in this space. And so this is continuing. This happened when it had to do with lynching. This is happening now in this anti-Black environment that we are living in. It's the same method, sending notes to inform the teachers of how they're going to educate their children. And it's the same goal, which is anti-Blackness. It's just a different context. So when we talk about FAFSA, listening to what Tony just said about how they're going to make it harder and harder, like how they're going to put in all of these different hoops that you have to jump through in order for you to take advantage of it. The question on some level has to be, do we even want to be educated in a system that treats us this way? Do we even want to be a part of it? Is it possible that there's another way that we can be educated? There's another way that we can be informed. There's another way that we can raise up our children so that they are conscious about what's happening around them. And going back to something that Deidre said last week, and so that we can walk as a nation, recognizing that we are bigger than, we are broader than, we are bolder than, we are more powerful than just a community. We are a nation. Like, how can we do that? Is this the best way for us to go? Now, if you say, yes, this is the best way for me to go, I got no problem. But is it possible that there's another way for us to be educated and for our children to be educated rather than go through this system that we know already has it in for us?
Yeah, and that's the question. And it's something that needs to be talked about, needs to be thought about, because that's one of the things that so many people throughout the history of this country and this world have pushed, that, that as Black people, we can accomplish these things. We can do these things. We don't need this. But I also think one of the things that has this idea that has hindered a lot of Black people, and this just my idea, is that for some, I think there is an underlying current that when it comes to this society, it comes to this country, is that we feel like we owed something, and because we're owed something, we want it. And don't get me wrong, I believe that whatever reparations that were given to all other people, whether it's the Asians, the Japanese who were interned, the Germans who were interned, the Native American Indians, all these people were compensated. Even the slave owners who lost slaves were given reparations. So I do believe that Black people there should be reparations. But when you start to look at how this country, whether it's the Learns Act, whether it's these policies, when you start to look at how they are being implemented, you have to stop and think, hold up, there are some things out there that I don't have to feel like this country owe me anything when I can go out and create my own. And a perfect example of what I'm talking about, and we have to be very careful. You have to pay attention to what's going on. So the governor of Texas got the state legislators in Texas to come up with this law that if they think you're a migrant, if they think you undocumented, that they can stop you and ask you for your papers. Remember stop and frisk in New York. They're basically the same thing. And if you think about, if you go backwards, when you were Black, back during days of enslavement, you had to have papers. If you were a Black man or a Black person, you had to have papers to show that you were supposed to be where you were supposed to be at that point in time. The Supreme Court struck it down. Now, the Supreme Court agreed with Texas. I want to say the 8th Court or the 5th Court of Appeals said, no, hold up, Supreme Court. You're going to violate people's civil rights. You just can't stop people on the street. And so when you look at it in a broader sense, if this goes into effect, and believe me, if this happens, Arkansas, Florida, and all these other southern states are going to follow Texas. So that means that they're going to say, we're looking for migrants, but it gives us the right to stop you, Black person, on the street and ask you, where's your ID? Why are you here? Let me see something that I have to prove that I belong. And that's and I think that's something that we need to understand. We keep looking at the past and saying it's the past, but the past has now become the present and the future, because the things they were doing in the past, they're doing in the present. The only thing that's changed is you can put a dress on a pig, or you can put a suit on a pig, but it remains a pig. And I think that's something that we have to be very, very aware of, and how we move forward and how we start to create our own entities, that we don't have to depend on somebody else to give us something.
Yeah, and I think that, and it wasn't just enslavement, but during the Black codes, when
Jim Crow,
Jim Crow, we also had to have papers. And so one of the things that has to be noted is that we are, Phyllis Brown said, thank you, Tony. So one of the things that has to be noted is that we look at these issues, and when it's not us, we say, oh, that's happening to them. And so one of the reasons we center Blackness in this space is so that we can tell the stories of the lived experiences of folks, so that we'll know that what is happening to people. Because if you're not in tune, if it's not happening to you, then you can just ignore it. That's a privilege. That's a place of privilege, where you can just say, oh, I don't have to worry about that. That's not me. And so we do the same thing with any population. We do the same thing, whether it's people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, agender plus. We do the same thing when it comes to people who are migrants. We do the same thing when it comes to people who are immigrants. We do all of, if it's not me, then it doesn't, until it comes into my household, that's the only time I want to pay attention to it. But this right here goes, what you just said about these papers and this law in Texas is the same thing that we just said about the Learns Act, rooted in this lynching history, that it's the same method with the same goal, just in a different context. And so it's affecting everybody. So we cannot look at what's happening and think, oh, that's them. Oh, that's not something I have to worry about. Us. All of us have to be in this fight. That's why we call it collective liberation. Because if those immigrants are not free, you ain't free. If Black folks ain't free, you ain't free. If transgender people ain't free, you are not free. We have got to understand that we are living. We need to live into the Sawubona, right? The oneness that is undeniable because we are humans. So we cannot allow these kinds of things to happen regardless of who they happen to, because in the spirit of humanity, everybody should be in an uproar about what's happening in Texas, about what's happening in Africa, about what's happening in America. And so we've got to figure out, how do we understand that it is the world that has programmed us to believe that we are in a zero-sum game, that if I lift up somebody else, that means that I'm not going to get my own. And that is a lie. That is a false narrative. There is enough humanity for all of us to experience all the time, in all places, in front of all people. If I say, because a lot of people say, oh, she pro-Black, that means she anti-white. That is not what that means at all. This is not a zero-sum game. All of us have enough room on this planet to exist together in a spirit that lifts up and celebrates the souls, the essences of who we are. And if we are not careful with this educational process, if we are not careful with the way our children are being indoctrinated with whiteness, with the system of white inhumanity, this is what's going to happen. So it was a 9-year-old boy who said, I have seen a man hanged. Now I wish I could see one burned. He was 9. Imagine what his outlook on life is when he turns 18. Like Kyle Kittenridge. What's his name? Kyle Rittenhouse. And imagine what his life looks like at 21 when he's shooting up Black folks in Mother Emanuel Church. At 21 years old. And so when we talk about this stuff happened in the past, it may have happened in the past, yes, but that attitude, that stereotype, that prejudice, that bias continues to live and grow and evolve in us.
You know, Denise, you brought up a point in a minute ago, talk about the appetite, this appetite for more. So one of the things that religion has done, religion has set out a table for people to eat off of. And the more you eat off the table of religion, the more you want to eat, the more you want to eat, until they get to the point that this is not really satisfying me. I need more, I need more, I need more. And so when you think about watching these, you know, this 9-year-old boy saying, I've seen a Black man hang, now I want to see one burn. There was this, I saw this on this commercial or this ad a couple of weeks ago, and it just, what you were saying brought it back to my attention. So Donald Trump is selling a Bible.
With the American flag,
yeah,
on
the Trump
Constitution in it.
Yeah, the Trump Bible. And they were interviewing some people, and they were saying that, oh wow, I want to buy that. I'm going to get that Bible. I'm going to get it. And it's fueling that appetite. It's fueling the appetite. All you have to do is look at January 6th. All you have to do is look at, you know, his rallies. You look at it. It's the same type of atmosphere that this 9-year-old boy is talking about. It's the same type of atmosphere that people want to see. We want to see something burnt down. We want to see Black people and migrants lynched. You know, and when I say lynched, it don't have to be on the tree. I want to see them lynched by them showing that they have papers showing that they're here. I want to see them lynched by the education. I want to see them lynched by not having affordable health care. I want to see them lynched by not having affordable housing. That's what I want to see. And it's always somebody in these malls, one or two people who are leading the mall. They're the ringleaders. And we see it happening now. And you said something, Denise, that is so important. Sometimes we look and we see that if it's not, the undocumented or the immigrants, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Or they try to tell you they're coming to take your jobs, or they tell people, hey, if we educate them, if we teach them the truth, then they're going to take over. And they don't realize that, you know what? They're not going to get educated. I don't have the money to send my kids to a private school to get educated. I may not even qualify for the vouchers. I may not qualify for health care. But as long as it's framed that it's them that's stopping you, then this atmosphere of lynching, this atmosphere of hanging, this atmosphere of inhumanity will continue, because I can't look at them as human because they're taking something away from me.
But that's a principle of Christianity, this insider-outsider notion that you got some people who are, if you saved, then you are good. If you're not saved, then you're bad. If you're a sinner, then you're not good. If you're saved, then you're good. It's this insider-outsider mentality that's rooted in Christianity. So when you bring up the Bible, then that is something that we have to pay attention to, because even we do that at the church. We separate ourselves from the world. We say, well, no, you can't be worldly. You got to be. So this separation is rooted in Christianity. So when you talk about he's got a Bible, Trump is selling a Bible. Well, let me bring in the spirit of Hotep right here, because my elder Hotep has taught us that we have to go to the etymology of the word. We got to think about what the word means. And religion, the root of the word, means to bind. And so these people that are wanting this appetite is for religion, but it's the root word. It's the binding to these principles, not the principles of Jesus, not the principles of Christ, not the principles of God, but the principles of whiteness, the principles of white inhumanity. You are bound to it, and at all costs, you are willing to fight for it, no matter what, even when it's against your own interest. And so you now have this Bible that I just read to you, that the Ku Klux Klan used the church revivals to recruit members so that they could terrorize Black people. They did it in church where there were Bibles. And now you have this man, Donald Trump, who has said out loud, he makes no bones about it. He intends to oppress. He intends to dominate. He intends to be superior. That's his intention. That is his goal. And now they got a Bible. And so they are binding themselves not to the scripture, not to the verses, but to this ideology, this lost cause that white people are supreme. No, white people are inhumane. The system of whiteness is inhumane. That is what it is. And that is why we keep asking ourselves, it's Christianity. If that's what it's rooted in, if that's how it is being used, and that's how it's being weaponized, can't we figure out another way to worship? You got to worship through this way. If our children are not being educated properly, can't we figure out another way to educate our children? And yes, we are owed reparations. We absolutely are owed reparations, but that does not mean that while I'm fighting for reparations, I have to be complicit in everything else. I could be doing two things at the same time. I could be fighting for reparations and educating my own children at the same time. So we've got to stop and say, hey, how am I being complicit, and what am I going to do? Not how am I being complicit. We got to stop and say, look, I am being complicit, and what do I need to do about it? I want to read this one. I found this on Facebook. I was going through scrolling in the middle of the night, and it's a picture of, I think this is Linus and Lucy from the Charlie Brown series. And I think this is Linus who turns around to Lucy and says, no one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. No one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. And so the conversation that we have yet to have with Dr. Taine Duncan about all of the red tape that's causing the problems with FAFSA, all of the stuff that you just told us, Tony, all of the information that you just provided about the scholarship and how that worked out, we should not be surprised. So instead of us continuing to worship at the shrine of their lives, according to what Hosier says in the song, Take Me to Church, we've got to realize that there is a more sacred way to be human that ain't got nothing to do with this God that they keep trying to give us.
One thing I want, when you said that about the education, I thought about this. And I want you to understand and think about this. So the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery was implemented so that your children or people are able to get scholarships to go to college. And as it has gone on, most of that money isn't going to scholarships. They had started to make all these different changes. But you think about all the people, especially poor people, poor Black, poor white, you're spending all this money. And I know you said, well, with the lottery, I can get one shot and I can, make some money. I can have some money. But you're spending all this money on these lottery tickets. And then when your child gets ready to go to college, they're denied based on whatever that the money you have spent over the years playing the lottery, you can't even send them to college. You think about that. You're spending all this money, for scholarship for your children, but then when it's time for them to go to school, they deny them. The money ain't there. But you've been playing. You've been spending.
So Charles Mugaga and the children from the Kids Infant Gear School, they've been listening to us all the way from Kampala, Uganda. We see you. Thank you so much. It's time for us to get out of here, y'all. It's been a crazy day. But your girl Lola's right here ready to bring you 2 hours of jazz. And as it feeds your soul, think about your complicity. As it feeds your soul, think about how you can use the beats to get your feet to moving so that we can do something different around here rather than continue to be complicit in these systems that continue to dominate, oppress, and exclude all of us, not just Black people, but all of us. And so I'm gonna leave you with Strengthen Your Mind. I got this song from Elle the other day. Here you go. We'll see you on Thursday.